My friends, welcome. This is Howard Reel, the host of the Real Truth radio show. There's a question that people all over America and all over the world are asking, and for some reason it seems like they don't want to find the answer, and the answer is not that difficult. How could these two young people, Dzhokhar and Tamerlan Tsarnaev, they grew up in a wonderful neighborhood in America, they attended great schools, they were popular, they were sports heroes, everybody seemed to like them. How could they be radicalized? How could they turn against America? How could they commit such horrific acts out of hatred? Worse than that, the media, I've been following it just as you have. The media is describing them as Russian terrorists or Chechen terrorists. My friends, there's no such thing as Russian or Chechen terrorists. There are Muslim terrorists who happen to live in Russia or Chechnya. People are looking for the organization that they belong to. They figure they must belong to some kind of huge network, because left to their own devices, why would they do such a thing? Well, the answer is as obvious as can be. There is no membership in any organization needed in order to commit honor killings, and they happen all the time. People killing their own children, their own Muslim children, for the honor of the family. You don't need to belong to an organization to enforce genital mutilation, and yet it is common throughout the Muslim world. Back in the 1920s, before there was anything like the State of Israel, there was something called Palestine. And back then, there were Muslim pogroms in the streets, slaughtering Jews in cold blood. There's a story told about a Jewish handicapped druggist. His name was Ben-Zion Gershom. And the stories are told that he lived among Arabs in his neighborhood, and he would dispense pharmaceuticals to them, either if they were poor for a much lower price than he should have, or give them to them for free, and the Muslims would thank him and bless him and kiss his hand. And on the day that the imams said it was time to slaughter the Jews, these same people who used to bless and thank and kiss Ben-Zion Gershom hacked him to pieces and hacked his wife to pieces. More recently, in the 1980s, there was a story about a couple of construction workers, a Jew and an Arab. They worked together on a construction site for months. In fact, they lived in the same trailer. They slept next to each other. They became friends. One day they noticed that the Jewish worker wasn't showing up, and they did some investigating. Long story short, they found out that the Arab had murdered the Jewish worker with whom he'd worked and become friends. More than that, when he killed the Jew, first he hit him over the head. The story came out later. He admitted to it. He hit the Jew over the head, tied him up, and before he killed him, he gouged out his eyes and peeled the flesh off of his face. In the early 2000s, there was a story about an Israeli citizen, an Arab, a Muslim, law-abiding citizen, never broke the law in his day in his life. One day he decided he was going to be a good Muslim, like the Quran says, and so he jumped in a bulldozer and went on a rampage and ran over cars and people. I forget how many he killed. But until the moment he became a terrorist, he was a law-abiding citizen. And as anyone will tell you, Arabs living in Israel enjoy the highest standard of living of any country in the Middle East. 2011, Palestinian freedom fighters decided to battle for freedom and democracy and human dignity by breaking into the home of the Fogel family in the Israeli town of Itamar. And as they slept, these Arab freedom fighters slit their throats, both Mr. and Mrs. Fogel as well as their children, Yoav, age 11, Elad, age 4, and a 3-month-old baby named Hadaz, whose head was sawed off of her body. We've seen Muslims drag dead bodies through the streets on the backs of cars. We've seen them standing in the window showing the blood on their hands, the blood of their victims. If you don't believe me, feel free to go on YouTube. Search. You will find Muslims all over the world proclaiming that Islam will conquer the world. And so the question becomes again, what was it that motivated these brothers? Were they members of some secret organization? The answer is simple. The answer is frighteningly simple. The Quran tells Muslims to conquer the world in the name of Allah. Now, if you're not comfortable with that, I don't know what to tell you, because it is actually what the Quran tells us. Host of questions. Why do they hate us? People have been asking that incessantly since 9/11. Why is there unending strife and violence in the Muslim world? Why is Iran threatening the world with nuclear holocaust? Why was the Muslim Brotherhood voted into power in Egypt? Why is Islam the fastest growing religion in prisons across the United States? Today's news, the Associated Press, Boston Mayor Tom Menino says information he has indicates that the suspects in the Boston Marathon bombing acted alone. Of course they acted alone. It's foolish to think they had to belong to some kind of network in order to do what they did, and that's the most horrifying part at all. Remember when the original George H.W. Bush was the president, a saying became current: it's the economy, stupid. Okay? Try to understand what happened in Boston. It's Islam, stupid. It's Islam by its very nature. Let me share with you some quotes from the Quran. From the Quran. Okay? Check them out yourself if you think I'm lying. Quran 9:5. Fight and kill the disbelievers wherever you find them. Take them captive, harass them, lie in wait and ambush them using every stratagem of war. Quran 9:112. The believers fight in Allah's cause. They slay and are slain, kill and are killed. 9:29. Fight those who do not believe until they all surrender, paying the protective tax in submission. Ishaq 3:25. Muslims, fight in Allah's cause. Stand firm and you will prosper. Help the Prophet, obey him, give him your allegiance, and your religion will be victorious. Quran 8:39. Fight them until all opposition ends and all submit to Allah. 8:39. Also, fight them until there is no more, submit to the religion of Allah. Ishaq 3:24. He said, fight them so there is no more rebellion, and religion, all of it, is for Allah only. Allah must have no rivals. Quran 9:14. Fight them and Allah will punish them by your hands. Lay them low and cover them with shame. He will help you over them. Ishaq 300. I am fighting in Allah's service. This is piety and a good deed. In Allah's war I do not fear as others should, for this fighting is righteous, true and good. Ishaq 5:87. Our onslaught will not be a weak, faltering affair. We shall fight as long as we live. We will fight you until you turn to Islam, humbly seeking refuge. We will fight not caring whom we meet. We will fight whether we destroy ancient holdings or newly gotten gains. We have mutilated every opponent. We've driven them violently before us at the command of Allah and Islam. We will fight until our religion is established, and we will plunder them, for they must suffer disgrace. Quran 8:65. O Prophet, urge the faithful to fight. If there are 20 among you with determination, they will vanquish 200. If there are 100, then they will vanquish 1,000 unbelievers, for the infidels are a people devoid of understanding. Ishaq 3:26. Prophet, exhort the believers to fight. Bukhari. A man whose face was covered with an iron mask came to the Prophet and said, Allah's apostle, shall I fight or embrace Islam first? The Prophet said, embrace Islam first and then fight. So he embraced Islam and he was martyred. Allah's apostle said, a little work, but a great reward. My friends, there is a long, long list of quotes just like this, and I won't go through. I've only gone through a fraction of them. I've posted them on my Facebook page, Real Truth Radio. You can find them in about 10 seconds on the internet, just as I did. What could have caused the Boston Massacre? And what's especially frightening about it? What's especially frightening is that there are 1.5 billion Muslims in the world. And on any given day, any of them could conceivably do what these brothers did. Open the Quran, read passages like this, and you say, no, you know what? I think I'm going to be a more religious Muslim than I have in the past. The Quran calls for me to kill non-believers, to wage unceasing jihad and conquer the world. I think that's what I'm going to devote my life to. Will every Muslim do that? Of course not. Which ones will do it? We have no way of knowing. Could be any Muslim. Could be coming from any mosque, anywhere. And that's the most horrifying part of all. My name is Howard Reel. My friends, Seek the truth yourself. Look for it, you'll find it. It's time to take action. It's time for the West to defend itself against an implacable foe that has declared war against us. Am Yisrael Chai.